Hi, guys. Welcome back to an episode of The New Unfiltered. Happy New Year. If you're subscribed to Stay Fearless or Die Trying, you probably saw my last newsletter of 2023. I talked about how I hate New Year's resolutions, but the one thing that I do suggest everyone does is I have started in my journal every single morning, essentially writing down like where I am now, where I want to be in 3 months, and how I'm going to get there. I find that that keeps me really grounded and on track, but also doesn't overwhelm me. The thing that I hate about New Year's resolutions is I find if I don't end up making the goal or getting to where I expect it to be, I get really frustrated. So if you're somebody like me and you have super high type A expectations for yourself, then maybe you should try out this form of manifestation slash journaling. But for those of you who are new to the podcast, I am a former Radio Disney host, and this podcast is about startups and entrepreneurship and my life as a 20-something-year-old entrepreneur. I have relocated most of my life to London, but have been in and out of LA for the past 4 years. And when I lived here full time, I struggled so hard making friends. This is such a difficult city to meet people in, to date people in. And so one of the reasons I really loved being in London and spending more time there is because I've met such incredible people. Now, I haven't ever interviewed somebody on this podcast who I've met in such a random way, but I have become close friends. She is a mentor to me, an inspiration to me, and just somebody I wish I had actually met when I lived full-time in London. So today I am welcoming Yvonne Dougher to the podcast. She is an entrepreneur. She is just hilarious. And we met through a friend of mine who randomly met her in London. I think we can both agree that just like going to a hotel bar or any type of bar and sitting there and talking to people and meeting people is such a great way to meet somebody new. But I think a lot of people also struggle with confidence issues. So that's something we're going to get to in this particular episode. But Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that.
So walk me back towards like the beginning of your life. So you're from Newport.
I grew up in Newport Beach, in Orange County. I've resided in Southern California my whole life. I travel extensively. I have 2 kids. My daughter in her 20s. My son is 17. He goes to boarding school in Switzerland. So I spend a lot of time traveling to go visit him. I was married for 17 years and that didn't work out. And so after my marriage, I got into real estate and investments. And that kind of just snowballed. And now I'm more retired from the investments I made prior and just doing a lot of traveling and things like that.
When I met you, I was so nervous because there's such a stereotype about people in LA. I mean, you're just like, wealthy and you're a woman. You're probably married to somebody really rich. You're probably just a huge bitch. And when we met, I immediately was like, oh my God, I want to be friends with you. I don't even care about
all those things that I am.
No, or my close friend. Well, no, you're not that.
I know, I'm kidding.
Or the close friend who we even met through. But, you going to London and all the traveling and whatnot that you've done. When you were younger and in your 20s, were you this confident?
Absolutely not. I got married at 24, so I did family life for many, many years. And after my divorce, I remember I had relocated to a town I didn't know anyone, and I was sitting in the house, and I was terrified to go out and meet people. But I had to. I had no choice. I was in this town. I didn't know anyone. And my son was at his dad's house for the weekend, so I was literally home alone in this big house. And I said, okay, get dressed. It's Friday night, and you need to go sit at a bar and eat dinner. And I wore a baseball cap, and I had my headphones in because I was so nervous. And I sat down, and these 2 women were so lovely that I sat next to, and they are my friends to this day. And that was 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And once you have a positive experience, then it's easy. So after that, it was like, positive
reinforcement.
Yes, positive reinforcement. So like, then I said that was so easy. So then I would go to dinner by myself. And if you're alone, you get approached 10 times more than with a group of girls. So no one wants to go up to a group of girls and interfere and be like, hey, what's up? When you're alone, people are like, hey, are you alone? Are you traveling? Why are you here? I find the easiest way to meet people is being alone. In fact, I met your friend when I was alone. He was alone, and then he brought you along, and now we're all friends, which is awesome. But
You were sitting alone, which is such a baller move, I think, at the Ritz, right? And he also, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's also half of your, like, he's 20, 25,
yeah,
26. Like, I don't know why this kid, I mean, I love him to death, sits alone at hotel bars like the Ritz. For you, it's acceptable. Like, you're already successful. I don't know what's going on in his life that he gets to do that. But is there like one sentence or thing that you would suggest somebody say who's maybe wants to test out going out and meeting new people and is super scared to do it?
okay, well, I always have a backup. So I always have like my earphone. So you can always put one earphone in and one out as you sit at the bar, because then you're kind of busy doing your own thing. They don't know what you're doing. But a lot of times I'll be listening to like a podcast or something while I'm eating dinner. And then you kind of feel out the bar. But I always find complimenting, and not just making up a compliment, but if you see someone with like a really nice outfit or like a nice accessory, or if they look like they're having a good time, everyone wants to be complimented. That's human nature. So if you say, hey, I noticed, your handbag, it's really pretty. I just wanted to let you know. No one's going to be rude to that. Nobody. Everyone welcomes a compliment. So, and if you smile, you can't sit there with like a resting bitch face. You have to be smiling, eye contact, and just be like confident. If you have an air of confidence about yourself and you have good posture, you sit up straight, you order your meal, have a drink, look around, smile, people are very approachable, And I think traveling alone, hotel bars, half the people are alone.
Yeah.
And why are they sitting at a bar alone? Probably because they want to talk to
Or
someone.
they're a prostitute.
But, well,
Either
yeah.
way. But usually the first, though. You can also,
Yes,
the
you know what? I've
prostitute.
seen a lot of the prostitute things, but everyone knows who that is, and they kind of have their little dress on, and there's a way about them.
Yeah, I agree. I was in Mexico City. I went alone, maybe like a month or so ago. And I took myself, there was a restaurant called Pujol. You've been there?
Yeah,
or no?
it's like a Michelin
Yeah.
star.
It sucked. But there was a girl next to me and she was alone. And I tried talking to her, but she just, like, I couldn't, and I don't like talking to girls. I like more talking, like, I could talk to any guy, I think, at a bar. I don't care as much about them rejecting me as a girl that I don't know. But there was no vibe. I couldn't, and she would like say something to me and I couldn't get the energy.
Yeah.
So what about if you're rejected? Like, you say hi to someone, you compliment somebody, and then they reject you, or they're just really standoffish.
Oh, that doesn't bother me. The number one thing is you can't care what people think.
How did you get to that point, though?
Probably through so much rejection that you don't care. And so I've seen you say, I'm calling someone who's rejected me, and you get to the point where you become resilient. And so we've all been rejected. I was in sales. So if you're in any type of sales, you're going to be rejected. Constantly people shutting the door in your face. So anytime someone's rude or mean, it's not about me. I know that. I'm great with who I am. And so if someone rejects me or doesn't want to talk to me, that's them. That has nothing to, maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they're going through something. It has nothing to do with me because I'm friendly, I'm nice, I'm approachable. So if I try to talk to someone, hey, how are you? And they, disregard me, maybe their mom's in that. You have no idea, but it's not you. And once you get out of what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. And so I think just over time, I do a lot of positive affirmation, I'm a lady boss. I can do anything. I tell myself all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's not crazy, though.
But no, and you believe it.
Yeah.
After time, now people come up and they're like, you're a lady boss. I'm like, that's so funny. I've been telling myself that for like 5 years. You're a lady boss. And now it's like manifestation is real. And so if you go out and you say, I'm confident, I like to talk to people like to talk to me, it really works.
Yeah, that's actually true. Do you write that stuff down, or you just say it in your head?
I say it.
Okay.
But I talk to myself a lot in my head.
I do the same thing. Sometimes I'll go on a walk and I'll have a full-on conversation with myself. Like, I'll even be talking out loud and I'll see people look at me. So I agree with having the AirPod in your ear, especially if you're sitting outside, like, talking to yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
you could just, it's on mute.
phone.
And you know what? Half the time, there's no music, there's nothing in the AirPod, but I have it in as like my thing, and no one knows what's on the other side of the AirPod, which is nothing.
No.
It's just my look.
Nobody needs to know. What if you get rejected? So say you're like sitting somewhere, right? And you're talking to somebody or you just say something and their response is just so disinterested. I feel like you're a really good people person because I'm the same way, so you can get the
Totally.
vibe. But what do you do? Do you just like say, okay, well, that was a bad conversation? Do you just like get really quiet?
I put in my other ear pod. So if I'm on it, I'm like, bye.
Yeah, so then you don't
You know what I
even
mean?
care.
It's like you just dismiss it. The other night, I walked down the hill to a restaurant I always go to, and there was one seat at the end of the bar, and there were two ladies sitting next to me, or younger girls or whatever, and they were conversating, but I listen to conversations also because if I'm interested, I'll chime in and eavesdrop, and I'll say, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I like what you said about this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're in such close quarters, it's not like I'm a weirdo eavesdropping. It's just like, hey, I heard you say, and people are always open to it. And they were talking about social media and getting their Instagram pages going. And they were talking about, should we do this or do that? And so I chimed in. I said, oh, I heard you talking about social media. I had some experience. My daughter, she manages media. My son was an influencer. I liked your idea of how you said this, but have you thought about that? And then they turned the chairs toward me. They got my number and they're like, oh my gosh, that's such good advice. So it could be male, female, anyone. But a lot of times, if you hear a conversation, you can tell the vibe of the people.
Yeah.
And they were like laughing and funny. And I'm like, oh, I can just chime in. But we exchanged information. It was like a good conversation, good connection.
And you feel like with girls, it's as easy, or you would say the same thing to a girl perhaps that you would say to a guy,
Well,
or no?
I feel like a lot of times if a guy approaches you, he's hitting on you.
But what if you start talking to him just because you're like at a bar and you don't have anyone else to talk to and say he's a handsome guy?
Yeah, that never happens.
Do you ever talk to guys at bars on
Yeah,
your own? Yeah.
yeah, of course. But a lot of times it's men trying to, hit on you or pick you up or whatever. But the other night there were also two gentlemen, and I think people go to a bar to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I think if you really look at the bar, half the people are alone. And bartenders are trained to talk to you. So if you go to a nice hotel bar or a nice bar anywhere, that's actually part of the training. If you're a bartender and you see someone sitting alone, is to strike up conversation with them. That's like so you feel comfortable. So usually it starts with the bartender. Hey, how are you? Are you visiting? They ask you those questions, and you build camaraderie and you speak with them, and then along the bar, people kind of chime in. It's a no-brainer.
Growing up in LA in comparison to spending more time in Europe, which I know is something you want to do now, what about the difference between, say, the experience of going out and meeting people in Europe or the UK versus LA?
LA's a tough one.
Why?
um, because everyone's here to be something. I feel everyone's on show 24 hours. Everyone has their act on. It's a false persona in a sense. It's not real people. I mean, of course, there are real people if you can get through the outer persona, but half the people are here to be famous, to be actresses, to be influencers. So they come in with this idea in their head what that looks like. And so they'll portray what they think it looks like opposed to who they are. I come across that a lot, but you can crack through that with a lot of people. I think LA is known to be fake. I think LA is known for social climbing. What can you do for me? I've had so many people reach out and try to use me as a tool to meet people, or that's LA. It's all about connections. Who do you know? Well, let me meet your people. It's kind of the industry and the business. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. That's what it is. We all know that. If you're in LA, you know that that's part of the thing is let my people meet your people. What are you doing? I have this project. You have this project. So everything is always like based on not what can you do for me, but kind of in a way. That's LA. When you go to these other countries, I think people are more in tune to who are you, and it's more genuine connections. And so I love Europe. I love Italy is my favorite.
I'm also gonna link her TikTok in the show notes because you guys, I have never met somebody as funny as her who doesn't even like. Sometimes you'll say something and it'll take me a second to be like, wait, and then like, was that real that she said this?
No,
And it's
it
totally,
wasn't.
but it's so funny. But you raised two kids in kind of the entertainment industry in LA, and you are not that classic LA person who's like
No.
trying to one up everyone and whatnot. So I'm curious, as a mom and also an entrepreneur in LA, I mean, how have, or perhaps haven't you kept your kids grounded? Like, what were morals or values you tried to instill in them growing up so that they didn't become that classic LA narcissistic, like trust fund, crappy teenager or young adult?
Um, Well, I raised my daughter in San Diego, actually, and she went to boarding school. My son was the one who grew up more in LA, and he's now in boarding school in Switzerland because he was in the industry and he said, I want to get as far away from it as possible. Can I go to Switzerland because the industry can be so ugly? And he quit everything and moved. He said, I just don't like the people, the tactics, dog eat dog. They will, stab you in the back. And that's just LA. People will stab you in the back to further their career. They're here for their career. And that wasn't really his thing. He said, I'd rather just go get a good education and go down another avenue in life. But I would always do family dinners. I always instilled family values, even though it was just myself and my children, because I've been divorced so long. I have open communication. We talk about everything. I'm always present. And present, I mean, not there, I am present mentally. So if they want to talk to me, I'm there. It's not like I'm just in the house. And so we have really good lines of communication and we discuss everything and what's wrong about a thing and what's right about a thing. And, they both went to a religious based school. So there is some type of foundation of morality involved as well. But yeah, LA's a rough place. I don't recommend you heading this way.
You know what I love that you said too is we were talking about something, and I can't remember if it was our mutual friend because he always wants to go to those hotel bars, but really in Europe,
Yeah.
pubs are so cool.
Pubs are an excellent
Yeah.
place to meet people. A pub, everyone goes to a pub after work. When I'm in London, I go to the British pub and you grab a pint and you can talk to everyone. They stand outside. It's all men in suits. If you're looking for a guy, that's right up your alley.
Yes.
But a pub is a great place.
So would you say like hotel bars and pubs?
What
or
are
is
you
there-
looking for?
Say you want to go, I guess, right, you want to go and you want to meet a guy.
Okay, if you want to meet a guy, what kind of guy are you looking for?
I don't know. I mean, like me, I can't, I mean, I don't know, like a general, just a guy who doesn't suck.
Where would you travel the world to find that?
I'm asking you. That's why I need to know because you're
Europe.
older and wiser
Okay.
than me.
So I would say if you're looking for an established, well-to-do man, a lot of them travel and they stay in really nice hotels. They work a lot, so when you're traveling, they go down to the bar to have dinner and a drink, and that's an easy place to strike up a conversation. Now, if you're just asking in general where to meet a guy, over in Century City, with the big tall buildings where all the top professionals work, they do lunchtime at Javier's. They find the lunch place in the business district.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's the financial district in New York, in London, they go to the nicest places for lunch, and it's all men in suits, and you can go and enjoy lunch there as well. But if you're looking like at night by yourself, a pub, you meet more locals, I think, too.
Yeah.
And so. Right, on a boat. And then the opening line would be like, hey, I'm traveling with my friends. We're thinking of renting a boat. Do you have any friends? Should we get together? But the guys are excited too because they have a group of friends. They have a boat. Why don't you guys come on the boat? And so it's more like a party. 4 girls, 4 guys. We hang out, and it's a great day. But I swear I was going to start an app that said, let your friends meet my friends so we can all be friends,
Yeah.
because it's so much easier to go on a date with a group. So imagine if like you got 4 of your friends together and you met up with 4 guys, maybe only one of you have a connection, but it's still a great time because there's a group of you. And so when I travel with girlfriends, I do that. Like we'll say, hey, I'm with my friend. Do you have a friend? And do you recommend a place? And it's a great way to go out with a group, which is fun. And it's like, there's no expectations. You're traveling, we're from out of town. Can you recommend a great place? And so I will do that a lot if I'm traveling with girlfriends. If I'm alone, I will also do an app and say like, hey, I'm just in town a few days. And then the guy will say, hey, do you want to go grab a drink? I know a great place after work. One of my very dear, dear friends, he took me to the Goring in London.
Oh, I saw you just posted about it, or I saw your TikTok.
Well, that was a few years ago, but we went there, most beautiful hotel, had a couple cocktails, and we've remained friends ever since. And it was off a dating app, but there was no romantic anything. I was there traveling. And in fact, I met up with him again this last time, and he was telling me about his girlfriend. And it's a great way to meet people globally. And so everywhere I go, I will do this, and I'll meet up with someone. I don't do anything weird like meet me at 9 o'clock it's always like, hey, do you want to grab happy hour? Hey, I'm going here with some friends, blah, blah, blah. But I always safety first, and especially being a female. And so I've met some fabulous people, and it's made me global. So I have friends. I've done this dating app stuff. I did it in Monte Carlo. I met this great gentleman. He took me to the best
Just
restaurants.
to clarify, did you just fly there alone on your own?
I fly everywhere by myself.
Love that. Like in Monte Carlo, like, hey.
I was in Monte Carlo by myself, London by myself, Bali by myself, Italy. I'd go half the time with friends, half the time alone. And so I do a lot of the dating apps alone, but I'm like, hey, I'm just in town a few days. Can you recommend? Do you want to go grab a drink? And it's not me looking for a free dinner or a drink. Obviously, I can do that myself, but it's like looking for some insight. Is there a cool local place? And it can start with just asking questions. Hey, I'm in town. Is there anywhere you can recommend? And then they'll say like, hey, why don't I take you to this place? And I've built a lot of friendships that way. Romantic involvement, that's kind of a tough one because I live on the other side of the world. But anytime I go to Italy now, I definitely have friends I can call up and go have dinner with, or London, or actually in a lot of places.
I used to be when in my like late teens, early 20s, so insecure, so scared of dating. And I think when I maybe turned 25, something shifted in my brain that was like, if I can view every date as a potential friend, right?
Yes.
Like I am going out with this guy because maybe I'll make a friend. So I end up showing up so almost authentically myself because I'm not so scared of like it not working out romantically. And I think when you're in a different country or anywhere and you're traveling, perhaps this may be the love of your life. Perhaps you'll get a free dinner. Perhaps it'll just be a really good friend. And that's exactly what you said about the guy you ended up going to that hotel with in London.
And I've made so many friends like this. And it's been awesome because Europeans live in the moment and they live differently than Americans, I think. And they're happy to show you. They want to show you, come with me and I'll show you this great spot. Yeah. They're so proud of their culture and where they live. They want to show you the best restaurant. They want to show this to you, and they don't have anything expected. I think in LA, guys are like, if I buy you dinner.
Yeah, no, because they don't have the money.
Yeah.
And you don't know if they have the money, even based on, that's the weirdest thing here. And I'm not saying we're dating for money, but I think you should always date up. Like, I think you should always date a guy who's doing better than you and is successful, because that means they have ambition and they've worked hard.
100%. And I know culturally Europeans will not let women pay.
No.
I've been with girlfriends, I've met men, and there will be one of them, four of us, and they absolutely do not let women pay. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but overall it's like insulting for them to have a woman pay.
As someone who is older and wiser than me, what do you think about, and have you ever been asked by a guy on a date to pay? What do you think about that? You've never been asked?
No, but I think it's the way I carry myself. Because they would be terrified to ask me.
What if your daughter came home and was like, a guy asked me to split the bill?
She would never.
But it could happen, right?
She would probably say, well, I think you get a feeling prior. So like, you have to feel, well, usually I don't go back and forth because I'm on dating apps. So if someone's like, hey, I don't do the text game. If someone says, hey, how are you? Would you like to connect and go grab a drink and meet up? Okay, sure. When, where? I've never had a guy ask, but maybe that's a younger generation thing too. Do guys do that?
All the time. I think guys.
Really?
But I think I've tried to go over this in my head of like, so guys will ask sometimes to split the bill. And I've also had times where a guy will be like, oh, the next round on you after the first date. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, there is no next round.
I know, well, I can say that. But then I think in their head, and this is guys I've dated in the US. I mean, I guess a few I've gone out with in London. I think to them, they're like, why would you expect me to pay for you? And I always would expect a guy to just pay for me. I think that's just an expectation my parents have, like, raised me by. And I didn't I came from poor parents. Like, they're still kind of poor, but I love them. And like the fact that my parents have raised me like that, and they didn't come from anything and don't have that much.
Yes.
So I think it's a generational thing.
It's true. I was just in Paris last month, and I sat at the bar by myself, and I had a full meal. Had a glass of wine, another glass of wine. A gentleman and his son came and sat next to me. His son was in his 20s. He was probably 50. We started chatting. He's like, I live in Dubai and I live in Paris. How are you enjoying it? I said, great. Blah, blah, blah. The bartender came and he put a bill down for me and a bill down for him. And he said, excuse me, give me her bill. My mother would kill me if I let you pay. He didn't even, I had finished my meal when he showed up. We just chatted, but that I find that happens a lot in European culture. And then he said, do you want to go see Paris tonight? I'll take you to like some fun private members clubs. And so we had a great time.
Do you
But
still talk to him?
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, what am I going to say? How's Dubai?
Yeah. No, but that's so sweet.
But if I'm ever in Paris and he is, he would take me, or we could go have a nice dinner
Yeah.
or something. But it's, with me, I do not have expectation of like finding like a true love, probably ever.
Do you say, would you suggest though that you've had it before and you just don't want it again?
I say there's a saying that men make all the money in the world so they can pick the woman they want. And they say women make money so they can keep the men away.
Where's the saying from?
I think I made it up. But you know what I mean? So
Not really,
women,
but yeah, I guess
women
so.
are really, really successful.
Yeah.
So I say to like my friends in relationships, if you had like 10 or 20 million, would you stick with him? And all of them are like, hell no.
Really? Why?
Well, I think independence, freedom to do anything you want, where men make the money so they can pick the trophy woman.
But what if you're a woman like you and I who is so independent and like so
Yeah.
independently successful, which I think can also be really intimidating to men. But I don't think I would ever go with a guy because I would want to be taken care of. But that's just me. I'm so obsessed with my independence. I would rather I'll say that lightly, but I would rather be taken care of a guy than like be taken care of in the way that like I would not get married to somebody who I didn't feel like in any capacity was like equal to me. Success wise, happiness wise, because I just like my independence.
I love my independence, and men don't like independent women as much. They do like more subservient. That's just say what it is, but it's true. They like to be catered to. And I find a lot of men, because I am successful, a man likes to show, let me take you to this beautiful dinner. Isn't this exciting? Well, I do that by myself all the time. I go to all those fancy restaurants. You just went to that great restaurant on your own. And so we're providing ourselves normally what is special for them to provide. And so so many men have not dated me. I used to drive a McLaren, and men would say, oh my God, your car's nicer than mine. They don't want to date a girl with a McLaren. They want a girl in a Honda that they can pick up in their Mercedes, and she gets excited. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, men just don't like it.
They don't like it, and I think it's also important to note that it's not like somebody bought you that. I mean, you're self-made, you bought that
For
car.
sure. But in their mind, 9 out of 10 times, they will say, oh, what does your husband do? What does your boyfriend do? No one will ever give a woman credit. Well, they will, but not often. 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, where'd you get that money from? Oh, did you take your husband to the cleaners? Oh, like that one was just told to me recently. And so it's like shocking that people don't say, oh, what kind of career are you in? Oh, what business model do you have? None of that. It's always what man paid for that, which is such a ugly perspective. But I don't know, it's been tough like trying to meet someone because, so now I sold the McLaren and I'm selling my house and I'm gonna go get an apartment and I'm gonna meet all kinds of guys.
But I think the guy that you meet, and I feel the same way, needs to be so good and such a good fit, and they need to add so much value because of the fact that like you can, I mean, I'm not driving a McLaren and could not afford one, but like you could do this stuff on your own.
I will never settle.
Yeah.
There's no settling. And I have so many friends who are like, he's really wealthy. He'll provide me a lifestyle that I will never be able to attain on my own. He's not the love of my life, but he treats me well. I will never, ever, ever, ever have that because I can provide myself a lifestyle that I want. And so it makes it really hard to find a man who, number one, wants to be a part of that, because I think sometimes men like to control money or control women financially.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but if he's paying all the bills and paying for everything, he has a little bit of say. And so with me, no one has any say on what I do. I jump an airplane and I leave for 2 months. If I'm dating someone, they're probably going to say you can't do that. And I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I have a very close family member actually who definitely doesn't listen to this podcast, so I will go for it. Married to somebody very, very, very wealthy from a very wealthy family. And she has no job, like no savings, not like can't do anything. And it is like, I think to be honest, that is a form of like emotional abuse. And I've realized that, but like she's college educated. I don't know why she doesn't want a job. She's like, I used to work. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't realize it's the simplest thing, right? Having to call a man and ask him for money. If you have kids, right? Like
Or
I
call
get
and ask. I could never say, hey, and number one, when a guy says on a date, let me know when you're home, that's a red flag for
why?
me. I don't
Why?
like it because
Really?
I just met you and I don't report to anybody. So it's date number one. Let me know when you make it home. I've gotten to this age making it home fine. And I know sometimes it's like a courteous thing, but for me, it's like maybe it's just a trigger for me because it's someone checking up on me.
Yeah.
Like if I ever got a text from a guy, where are you? What are you doing? I'm like, that's none of your business.
At what date would you say though that would be appropriate? Or like how far into a relationship? If I like somebody, I want somebody checking up. Like, it doesn't need to be like calling me. None of
Well,
that.
I've been with friends and they are like, if we're traveling, constantly checking in. And I'm like,
With their husband or boyfriend?
yeah,
Oh.
what are you doing now? Where are you guys going? And I'm like, I just don't, I'm so used to no one asking me what I'm doing. Even when I was married, like my husband was, we were very independent in our own ways. So I was married 17 years, but I would say, hey, I'm going to go on a trip for 2 weeks. He's like, okay, have a good time. I would maybe talk to him twice in the 2 weeks. So for me, it's a little different because I've never had anyone checking up on me. And so now to have someone going, where are you going? What are you doing? I'm like, mind your own business.
Would you suggest though that he didn't check up on you because you guys were confident in your relationship, or you just
Yes.
didn't give a shit?
No, confident. There was no, he said you're with your friends, you're having a great time.
Yeah.
There was zero worried about any type of insecurities at all.
I can't remember if it's something I came up with in my head or I saw once, but if you're a girl and you and your boyfriend or significant other goes on a bachelor party and you are so nervous about what he's going to do, to me that is such a red flag.
Yes.
There is
Yes.
something so wrong with the
Yes.
fact you don't trust your partner, boyfriend, whatever, on a bachelor trip with a bunch of bros.
And that goes vice versa. So I think when anyone goes on a trip and either party is insecure, that's a red flag. There should be
Huge.
no insecurity at all. It should be like, have a great time, enjoy your friends, call me if you have time. That's pleasant.
I want to switch gears before we wrap up into some of the, I feel like you have or would have really good travel tips, like the best credit card or certain things you've stayed and stay at. I mean, the best places in the world. You've done the most incredible things, the best resorts. What are any secret tips and tricks? Like, is there a credit card that's the best for traveling with your most lavish lifestyle?
Well, I have the Black Amex, and that, if you have the Platinum Amex, gives you the same fine resorts and hotels, which is free breakfast, room upgrade, 4 p.m. checkout. So Platinum card users can use that too to book.
And how do you get this platinum card? Because you
I
posted something
think-
on TikTok and it said like people can't get it or
The
something.
Platinum one you can get.
Okay.
The Black card, it's Centurion. It's
Okay.
invitation only. You have to. It has really high spending requirements, and it's probably really difficult to get.
Okay.
So I do have that one, but the Platinum, anyone can get one. And that one, I think it's like maybe $175 a year. But if you travel, you get a room upgrade. You get free breakfast. And these are at really nice hotels where the breakfast is like $60 a person, and it's 2 people get breakfast. So right there is like at least $100 off a day. Then you get $100 spa credit. Then you get 4 o'clock checkout. You get noon check-in. So that's a great credit card. The points system is like 1 for 1. That's not great. So if I'm booking reservations, I'll use my Centurion card for travel. But if I'm spending on food or travel, I will use my Chase preferred Sapphire card because I'll get 5
I
points.
just gave back, I canceled that card.
Why?
Because I thought the annual was too high and I ended up getting the Amex
It's
Gold.
$95.
No, the Sapphire was $550.
Mine's 95.
Is it the Chase Sapphire? Is
Yeah.
it the dark blue or the light blue?
The dark blue.
And it's like the metal one?
I don't know. But I
Okay,
get
'cause there's
5
two.
points per dollar spent.
Okay.
So like if I spend, $100, I get 500 points on travel. And so I like that. I'm all about points. I only fly business and 90% of the time I use points.
And that is because though you basically spend more on the card so you get more points.
Yes. So I spend and then I transfer the points to, and a lot of times, like right now on Chase, there's for every 1,000 points transferred to Virgin Atlantic, you get 1,300
Virgin's the
points.
best, yeah.
Yeah. And you can travel. You were
I
sharing
do.
15,000 points.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah. So I always use points. And then, you know what, when it's last minute, I'll use websites like Kayak or different like last minute hotels. You can get really good deals on those sometimes where they're like 60% off. But I do have some secrets I don't want to share because I don't want everyone jumping on them and then they won't be secrets and then it'll drive the prices up.
I'll get you too much wine when we're actually in
Yeah,
Europe.
there's
I'll be
one I'm
pushing
not
you into
telling
a
anybody.
TikTok.
Not telling anybody.
I just thought of one last thing too before we end. In terms of like real estate and investing for people in their 20s, what advice do you have for basically just starting, getting into real estate or investing? Say you've got $5,000, $7,000, you're maybe in your 20s.
Well, I have a portfolio with different properties from Bahamas to Dubai to New York, Los Angeles, different areas. And so, like, I just bought a place in Dubai. It's so inexpensive. I bought a condo for $238,000 on the 34th floor of a brand new building that is Bugatti developer, which is the top developer. They did a collaboration with Bugatti. And it hasn't been built yet. I think they've done 16 floors so far, but it's already doubled in price. So it's just getting in, and they had things where you pay Dubai's a big one who's trying to get people to relocate and expats. But Dubai, they'll work with you, 0% interest on a loan, 0 property taxes.
What?
They'll rent it for you and give you the full amount of the rent. Like, that's such a great place. And I'll probably never go to it. I'll probably just rent it out or resell it and double my money.
But who decorates it and stuff if you won't go?
They'll have someone do it for you. Everything, they are so accommodating there. And then there's certain areas, Los Angeles right now, it's so expensive. I feel like everything's inflated. But there's certain areas like you can go to in like Florida, even like Arizona, even Palm Desert, where you can still buy a home for like 500,000. And I know that sounds like a lot, but comparatively speaking, it's not. And so, or even if you can go find a house anywhere for like 70,000. I think there's some like states you can buy one for 70,000. Property always goes up. Just think of the house you grew up in. What is it worth now versus what you paid for it?
For sure.
There's no such thing as a piece of property that doesn't eventually go up. I wish I owned every house I ever owned because I would be so wealthy. And that's always the saying. It may not go up this year, next year, but just think about any home you grew up in, any home you lived in, it's probably doubled in price since then. So I always go, and if you look at any mogul or anyone who's like billionaire status, most of them are real estate, a lot of them.
Would you say real estate then is the best way to make money?
Yeah, and a lot of times, even though if you can rent it out to cover costs, that's fine because your real money is in the, what's it called?
Making it like the redo? Or the rent monthly?
Not the monthly, no,
like refurbishing it, whatever?
No, when you sell it, equity.
Oh, got it.
The equity, that's the money. So if you buy it, say for 100,000, and you're renting it to cover it, and you're making $0 a month, and then in a couple of years it's worth 300,000, the money's in the equity, the 200. So that's what you do. It's all. So like I may be cash poor, but I have tons of properties that if I was to sell, I'd be doing fine, but I don't need the money. So it's just sitting. It's like a bank account that grows.
Yeah. Yvonne, where can everyone find you on social media, connect with you?
I am on Instagram at Queen Evo. That's how it sounds, Queen, and then YVO, which is for Yvonne. TikTok, I'm at Queen Evo 1, and those are my 2 social platforms I use.
I wish everyone had a mom like you because you're just the coolest mom out there. You guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of The New Unfiltered. Head to the show notes to find out more about this podcast as well as where to follow Yvonne on social media. And if you're interested in sponsoring an episode of The New Unfiltered, you can click the link to be directed right to my storefront for all the social media through Passion Fruit. And I'll see you guys next week for a new episode of The New Unfiltered.